Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Monday, and this is another glorious expedition. That's what I'm going to say, expedition. That's a new word of Ask That. And today I have Duane Newman with me. Duane, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic.
God bless. Before we get started, why don't you give us a quick intro about who you are, what you do, and the SCUBA reference on your shirt.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Duane Newman. I live in Kansas City area, and I'm a consultant, software developer, co-founder of company Alien Arc Technologies, and we do mobile, cross-platform mobile, do some IoT, modern desktop work, and then web, and I'm a consultant, so whatever else people will pay us to do. I've been a developer since the mid-90s. Started out back in the day on Visual Basic 3 and worked myself up to 6 doing client-server work. Started doing some classic ASP, and .NET came around, moved over to VB.NET, doing ASP.NET, and eventually found the light of C#, and done everything from web to desktop with WPF to these days spend a lot of time doing Xamarin work in the cross-platform world. I'm a speaker, speaking around the region here, Midwest. Been to several different conferences, some of the Amagalas, and of course, Kansas City Developer Conference here in town. Some others, Music City Code. Hopefully maybe that conference here soon. I'm a organizer for the Kansas City .NET user group, and we've got a really great community here. We usually have, somewhere in the 50s for our meeting attendance, and We've got a couple thousand on our meetup, so we have a pretty large reach there as far as people interested in what's going on here. And excited to be a first-time MVP. Was awarded last year, so I just got done with my very first MVP summit, which was absolutely amazing experience. Getting to interact with the Microsoft teams there and kind of getting a little bit of the behind the scenes and one-on-one time with them. So that was really cool.
Yeah, I bet.
And when I'm not behind a computer, I can be found a lot of times at the pool. I'm a PADI assistant instructor for SCUBA. So working on getting my open water SCUBA instructor certification, hopefully this year, but I help people discover the amazing underwater world and get them just started on that path. So it's kind of me in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's a big nutshell. You got a lot going on. Let's without getting into a religious war about Kansas City barbecue or Austin or East Coast, we'll leave that to the side. Let's talk a little bit about your company and the cross-platform mobile IoT space. You brought up Xamarin. Let's just put a bit of a guardrails around cross-platform mobile and kind of what that looks like and some of its challenges, and then we can go from there.
Sure. Yeah, so we've been doing a lot of Xamarin lately, and mobile's always been something that kind of had an interest to me, and also my business partner Brent, and we've looked at that stuff over time. Kind of stayed out of it a little bit. We looked at Xamarin in the early days and was excited about the opportunity to do C# on the mobile platforms, and working in that space and still having access to all the APIs and still creating in the end native apps, but using a language that I love and I'm familiar with and know how to work with. And never really did much more than tinkering with it until about 3 years ago when Xamarin Forms popped on the scene. And of course, I mentioned WPF in there a little bit, and I spent about 7 years almost exclusively doing desktop with WPF work. So I love XAML. That's my wheelhouse. Love being inside that. So when I saw the Xamarin Forms announcement and saw XAML sitting there on the mobile space for the UI and C# for the back end, I was super excited and picked it up and started running with it, just trying to really get in there and figure it out. In fact, it's actually what propelled me into the world of speaking. That was my very first talk was on Xamarin Forms. I was looking to to get started doing that and trying to find a way to give back kind of to the community. And suddenly I had this new thing that no one knew anything about. So I was like, I'm as qualified as anyone else to talk about it. And so I learned what I could about it, and it was really rough, but still really cool. And so we've been slowly doing more and more work with it over the last few years, and really been living inside that world for the most part for the last couple of years with a lot of our projects.
Sure.
And really, they've done a fantastic job. Of course, Xamarin itself has been around long enough to really have a good fit in there. They've conquered a lot of their challenges they had, already, and they provide a great opportunity to get on all the platforms, while still using C# and getting access to all the APIs. And that story is a pretty good story. That's, really, really baked in pretty well. And so being able to go already do cross-platform with that, doing native UIs, but being able to take it to the next step and being able to, abstract the UI away a little bit more too, and get to this point where we can describe what we want the user interface to be versus having to go in there and create all the specific little UI elements on each platform. We can say, hey, we want an entry here, and create the right thing on the right platform.
Sure.
And that's really, I think, propelled what we can do with mobile in terms of value delivery and everything, and getting something out the door, getting that MVP for a customer, out sooner than later, and everything. It's really been great.
Sure. So you mentioned Xamarin. So what are some of the hardest cross-platform challenges that you face today?
Well, just the fact that all the devices out there are all just a little bit different. Each platform. So we've got Xamarin Forms that gives us a great cross-platform user interface, technology to work with, but it's still covering the common pieces between the platforms. So there's still little bits in there where, hey, this platform just does stuff different enough, or has a paradigm
Sure.
that's just different enough that you're still have those times where you've kind of got to get in there and do some native stuff. And sometimes you've got performance and other things just because you're dealing with kind of this lowest common denominator interface to it and everything. There's times where you've got to get in there and do a little bit to kind of optimize for some performance and things like that. So I'd say the biggest challenge is when you hit those things where it's, this is platform specific stuff, and now you kind of branch out and do some. Fortunately, though, the way they've designed all this, they understood that was going to be the case, and it's, as straightforward as it can be to go do that and everything.
How do you plan for that, though? I mean, do you have a good sense of when you're going to fall off the rails, or are you kind of blindsided by some of it?
I think most of it you see it coming. Our typical approach is try to do it in forms with what we have to begin with, and look at what the customer needs, look at what we're trying to do in the app, and say is this standard stuff? Is this a standard list of information? Is this something that's just normal stuff, and they want it to look like that platform looks, not necessarily we want it to look the same across all.
Yeah.
You get into more difficulty when you're trying to achieve that branded Facebook or Twitter type look or whatever, where everything looks the same on all of it, whether you're on the web or on one of our apps or whatever. That's still achievable. That's still more difficult. But so we kind of look at that and say, is this something that can be handled? And then when we kind of see those things where, okay, this is going to be a little different, it's usually stuff you can get a sense for, and then we just decide how hard is it going to be to either attack that, or how important is it for them to have that?
Sure. How often do you find, for at least your company and the apps that you built, how often do you find that the apps are kind of pixel parity between platforms versus really taking on the truest sense of that what that platform has to offer?
I would say it's probably 75-25, somewhere in there, as far as most people want their app to look like an app would on that platform. They want their users on Android to feel like they're on an Android app. They want their users on iOS to feel like they're in their walled garden. They want everything to feel right for that platform. And then you have a little bit of we've got a brand that we want to push. We've got a look we want, and everything. There's certainly some of that out there, and totally reasonable depending on what you're doing to have that approach as well.
Sure.
And then we kind of find a mix in there too, sometimes where you've got, we kind of want this look, but we don't want to vary too far off, so
Sure.
we want all of our entries to be, a blank box or a blank space with a solid line under it, on all the platforms. So little things like that. And that kind of stuff we find a lot of where, it's not necessarily that we want pixel perfection
Sure.
between them, but we want more consistent look than the total, paradigm change of each platform.
Let's talk about the maturity of the customers. I mean, mobile's now been around for a decade. Obviously, the beginning of the season, if you will, was undetermined amount of value in there. It's growing. How seasoned do you think the customers really are with kind of taking over, diving into that world? And do they have designers on staff? Have they done like UX research with their customers to really see like how they're really embracing mobile, or is it just something where they're like, I need it because everybody else has one too?
Yes.
Fair enough.
So really we get to see a decent variety because of being consultants and helping other people with their projects.
Sure.
And we've certainly hit everything you just said right there. We've had startups with designers, and they're coming at this from a brand new, like we've got this thing we want to do, and this is the space we want to do it in, and we have a look we want, all this stuff to we're an established development company, been doing development and have all this stuff, and we need a mobile extension of our platform.
Sure.
And just make it work and everything. So we've really had the gambit of it there, and I don't know that I could say that there's really a trend one way or the other of it of as far as the maturity of people hitting it, because they are all over the place.
Sure.
I would say startups are a little more likely. Newer companies are going to be a little more likely to hit that because they're going ground up on something here and trying to get out there.
Sure.
But there's a lot of people trying to play catch up too, and either trying to compete with other people in the space or just realizing that having a app for their platform could really be beneficial.
Let's talk about the app for the platform scenario. I think that's a kind of a pretty common, I don't want to say enterprisey type thing, but are you seeing that people are embracing it in such a way that they're really augmenting the bigger platform, or are they just trying to like have another screen to do the thing? Like, are they really taking advantage of what you can do in mobile and like changing the features and functions around, or are we just kind of like adding a third leg?
Yeah, I would say that depends a little bit too, because we've had both, but I think the majority have been kind of the we need that third leg. We need a third way into this. We need some more presence, and it's a mix, right? So you gain some stuff when you go to the mobile platform that you have a hard time doing in a traditional app, like
totally.
notifications, right? So I think that's a big thing we see people take advantage of when they take their platform, to a mobile environment, is the discovery that, hey, we can actually, add features to our system that take advantage of some of the stuff. Like we don't have a way to let users know when there's stuff they care about, but now that we have them, we're in their pocket and everything. now we can add some stuff in and take advantage and let them know that, hey, there's something new you want to know about, and here it is right now, instead of, whenever they get back to their desk
Sure.
or fire the app, the app
Sure.
up on their system.
Yeah, I mean that's a much different mindset to be in when you think about, hey, I've got this thing with me, all the time, and I can do geolocation, and I can do whatever. I have a camera and
Yeah.
sensors, and how can I better the overall experience than just like slam another form
Yeah.
on a tiny screen.
Absolutely, and we do see a lot of that. We see a whole lot of, here's something that we have. You mentioned two of them right there that we see a lot of as well. Geolocation.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we actually want to know that they're either where we think they should be doing this, because we're some sort of system where we care about that they're doing something in a place that they say they are, so we want to capture it. Or we wanted to give them some sort of notification when they get within a range of something that's going on.
Sure.
And then also, cameras, like, oh, we've got this way to capture, this information that previously was either very difficult to capture, or we just didn't capture it all. But now we have the ability to, not only make a report about something, but hey,
Yeah.
take a picture of it right now and send that too.
Yeah. Yeah. What? Oh, I just lost my train of thought. That's what happens when you go live. It's just raw and
Yeah.
uncut. How it's funny, I think in some regards we almost start to take, I don't know, I guess because we run around with it and we're in the development space, we kind of take it for granted that these things exist. And I know it seems like a no-brainer that there should be some experience on the mobile device to help augment things. I have to imagine, though, that we're kind of in the minority of that thinking. I mean, certainly in tech, we're the majority thinking, but from a customer standpoint, I have to imagine that while there are millions and millions of apps in the store, that's just really kind of scratching the surface of, what could be done or should be done or refactored, whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely, I can agree with that. I think, obviously we're coming in a lot of times as a consultant, so usually at the point we're coming in, there's at least been some discovery and
Sure.
Decision to go with a mobile platform. But we've also talked with a lot of people, ahead of that happening, who are like, we want to bring mobile into this, and they see it as a developer that there's opportunity there. But they're turning around and have to make a sell back to their company to say, hey, we should
Right.
really invest in doing mobile on this. This is something that's our customers would benefit from if we had and everything. So I think there's still a lot of this, why mobile, why have another way to get to it out there. But I think it's slowly turning. You're getting some more proliferation of technology into decision makers' hands. Your decision makers are changing some to generations of people who have this technology with them all the time, and they're kind of seeing the potential in the different ways that they could do things. And some businesses are changing entirely their paradigm for stuff too. They're looking at it and seeing this is where we need to go. Give up the hard hold we have on either this web or this desktop or this whatever else, and let's take our product into the portable space.
Sure. Yeah. Kind of doubling back off of that. What about the iPad, tablets, I don't know, slab form factor, if you will, or let's step up from the phone itself. We've got internet speeds, which are, okay. We're gonna see 5G soon, and that will certainly change the game. Do you see a new resurgence of the tablet like space and trying to make that part of the experience in addition to the phone?
Yeah, of course, I'm optimistic about where we're going with mobile technology. Why I spend my efforts in that space, but yeah, I think so. I think that there's continued interest and growth in that space, and the laptops are becoming less and less prevalent, especially depending on what your job is, right? What kind of work you're doing and stuff.
Sure.
They're disappearing more and more, and people are going to either the phone or the tablet. And definitely the phone doesn't give the experience that everyone wants all the time, right? You're trying to do all your business on a screen, this size and everything. You're at the end of the day, you feel wanting for something better.
Yeah.
And tablets certainly provide the opportunity to fill that space. It's one of the things that excites me about stuff like Xamarin Forms for the mobile space, is being able to go in there and create something where you can make it adaptive to the interface space that you have. Yeah. Sure. So it's like, hey, we've got a phone. Give them something thumbable. Give them something they can use in their hand. And then you jump up. It's like, oh, we have tablet. We've got something with some real estate on it here. Let's give them a little more information, or give them fewer steps to have to get to all that information, because we can actually give it to them on one screen instead of having to swipe between a bunch or something like that. So I think there's some potential there. I think there's people looking at that in different market spaces for their businesses and saying, this is something that works better for us because of the form factor. And definitely, I think with so many of them having 3G and LTE and stuff like that built into them now, and where they can just get them and they're totally good to go, and they can hook them up to their VPN even if they need to keep it private and stuff. They can jump in there, provide this stuff, and then give their workers something that's both usable from a productivity perspective and everything, but very, very capable.
Yep. What's been some of the one or a few of the kind of most innovative solutions you've seen across the mobile, tablet, I'll say non-computer device?
Oh man, that's a good question. Throw me a curveball there.
Yeah.
Innovative. Yeah, no, I've really seen it's a wide array of what people have been doing with it, and I can't think of something off the top of my head right now, but I've seen a lot of times where people have thought outside the box of what they're doing, and not just said we're going to go mobile, but have really looked at it and said, hey, we have this thing that can be mobile, but also is just a small form factor and everything. So you have people looking at them for doing things like kiosk stuff, right? Where it's not even necessarily this is for my worker. I just need something simple I can take to a trade show that people can interact with, and everything, or that I can just put in a small space somewhere and has very low power requirements.
Sure.
And everything, and then start combining that with potential for IoT type environments and solutions where they've got something small, very capable, and connected that they can do interesting things with.
Sure. So now I'll ask the flip side of that question. What have been some of the biggest disasters you've ever seen?
When people take their spreadsheet UIs and throw them on a mobile platform. You laugh, but I've seen it.
Sure. Yep.
That is the disaster when it comes to mobile, is either the team or the business not understanding mobile, not understanding the paradigm, whether it's a phone in the hand or a tablet that's got a little more workspace and everything, not reapproaching how they display the information. And that's really a problem on desktop too, right? How many times of the grid type layouts or things like that, that's 90% of the time, random number there, but 90% of the time that's not even really the interface that you need or most effective for it, but it's the one everyone kind of understands, and so it's just what they design and go with and everything, when really you could have done something that would have helped the user see the information much better.
Sure.
And that's a modern desktop and apps, situation right there where you have some potential to come in and help with.
Sure. You mentioned IoT a few times. How do you see that fitting into things?
I think there's a lot of potential for IoT out there, especially as you've talked about connectivity becoming more available and everything. We've got I don't know. We've done all sorts of things. We've had an embedded project. It was a little bigger than IoT, but it was running Windows 10 IoT on a marine system and everything, interacting with some OEM hardware systems and everything. And they needed something that was robust, that we could develop an interface on top of, because they needed a screen for people to work with, but they also needed something that was going to be able to sit away in a corner there and hook up to and control and coordinate their stuff. So, I think there's a lot of potential there, whether it's something that's running on an embedded real PC type system, or it's running on a Raspberry Pi 3 or something that's a much smaller form factor, but still have enough power for small things that they want to do.
Do you see the mobile landscape kind of playing more with IoT than, say, the desktop landscape? I mean, both are kind of whatever is processing power. It's a different client, but I'm curious. I asked that because I'm curious if like the mindset of somebody who's like embracing IoT is also kind of forward thinking on the mobile side and going, I just want to kind of cut all ties, be able to do this, and just not even mess around with the desktop.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that, and certainly depends on your industry and some other things like that, other factors. But I think that yes, that's the same crowd that's thinking, hey, I can get this small little thing that's just going to sit, over here. I don't need anything special except for a cloud service or something for me to report data back to or interact with and everything. Then they're also going to be like, okay, what's the smallest effective way I can do this for other things we need to do with our system as well, user interactions and everything. And definitely mobile is geared to play better with that, right? So think about someone going around managing some IoT boxes, whatever that IoT box is, but some sort of little systems around, having a tablet that you can walk around and connect to these and do management with them, or configuration or things like that. Going to be a much more effective way to do that. And also, most of these things, that's probably going to be the more effective way to interact in general. Think about, IoT like in a warehousing space or something like that. Yeah. And people out there working with it and everything, tablets and small form factors are going to be a great way for those people to be able to get and deal with the information they have to deal with as they're moving around.
Sure. Have you done much like global mobile stuff where you have to deal with different languages and cultural things?
We haven't had to go real broad yet. We're working on some stuff for actually our current project's going to have some localization capabilities in it and everything, but we haven't had to conquer the left to right, right to left experience yet. So I'm not sure where that sits. I know there's work on it. There's capabilities there, but I say fortunately, I've never had to deal with it. I see that coming at some point though. Especially as more people are looking at, developing new products, new ideas, new concepts, and they're coming into the mobile space first and everything. They're going to be looking at how can I reach this across, not just countries, but across the world, across the globe, into all these other spaces.
Sure, for sure. Before I get to my last question, which is going to be a zinger, boy, let me tell you. I at the end of every show, I like to acknowledge and extend a bit of gratitude. And with that being said, I just want to thank you for your work in the community and actively speaking and working with the user groups and all the stuff that you do down there in Kansas City. Thank you for being on this. I think it's cool that everybody comes together and shares. And with that, I just want to say thank you. So that brings me to the last question, which would be, what would your advice be for anybody who's maybe looking to get started doing mobile development or trying to convince their customer on how to do mobile development, whatever? What would be your kind of call to action piece of advice?
So I would say if you're the person looking to get into it, like you're wanting to start doing that development and everything, my call to action would be to get out there and start tinkering. Find a project, an idea you want to play with, and go get the bits and start trying. If you're a .NET developer, all you have to do is install Visual Studio and tell it you want to do cross-platform with Xamarin, and it'll install all the pieces you need. It's so much easier than it was a couple years ago. Have a goal. That's my advice in general, though, when it comes to wanting to get into development. Is have something you want to do, because that's the easiest way to drive your learning and your understanding of it. Is actually trying to achieve something instead of just trying to write the next Hello World or whatever. And if you're trying to get your company to embrace mobile, I would say when it comes to that, look at the benefits of it. Really think about, do you want them to go mobile but just because you want to have a mobile app, or do you want them to go mobile because there's a benefit to the company for it? Business benefit, right? Yeah, and identify that, and spend a little bit of time, putting that idea together, so you can go to them and say, hey, look, I think that we could reach these new customers. I think that we could improve this aspect of our software, or I think that the way we're doing on the desktop is not the most efficient for our people. If we had a mobile solution, we could do that. And that's how you have to get anything technology wise pushed in a company, right? Companies don't want to spend money and resources doing things just to do them, unfortunately, because if you find one of those, let me know.
Right, yeah.
But because I love learning new stuff. But yeah, they need a reason to do it. And I think fortunately, mobile space has a lot of reasons for lots of industries and everything. It's just a matter of trying to identify that and help them see where the potential is.
Sure. All right. Well, sir, I want to thank you again for taking the time out today to talk a little bit about the old mobile landscape. With that being said, give us a thumbs up if you like it. If you don't, call our support department. Yeah, call the support department. They're open at least 3 minutes out of the day. But actually, leave comments below. I'd love to know what people are doing in the mobile space. What are you doing cross-platform? What challenges have you had? Duane and I will be around to intertake. That's not really. I'm a man of few words today. Not intertake, intermingle, whatever. We'll reply to those comments. But with that being said, thank you, Duane, again for it. Subscribe to the channel, thumbs up. Duane, lastly, where can they find more about you?
You can find out more about me at duanenewman.net or at Duane Newman on Twitter. Those are great places to catch me and interact with me. And I've got my blog there and posts and all sorts of information you can find over there. So
rock on. We'll put it below. And with that, do what Duane said. Go do something of value and just do it.
Absolutely.
I like it.
Great. Thanks, Clark.